So this lecture is on chapter 4. Well, it's more of a going through the chapter with you. So when you put more than one note together, you could have two notes together, which is more of an interval. You could have 3 notes or 4 notes together, and that creates harmony. A chord is an harmonic unit with at least 3 different tones sounding at the same time. And any 3 notes or 4 notes or 5 notes qualifies as being a chord. So in figure 4.1, they're just showing you all sorts of combinations that can be called a chord. B double sharp. But a triad is a 3-tone chord and could be, technically speaking, any 3-tone chord, but in Western European music of the 16 through 1800s, tertian chords, chords containing a superposition, meaning on top of each other, thirds, the term has come to be limited to a 3-note chord built of thirds. So I don't know if I can do this. I'll do a separate video on the keyboard. So if you, a triad always has a root, a third, and a fifth. The root is the pitch from which the triad will get its name. So you could have major triads, minor triads, diminished triads, and augmented triads. Now let's take a look and see what they are. A major triad will be a major third from the root to the third. This is the root, and this is the third because it's a third above the root. And a perfect fifth from the root to the fifth. So there's a root, and a third, and a fifth. And you can build a major triad on anything. Up a major third from the root to the third, and up a perfect fifth from the root to the fifth. That gets you a major triad. A minor triad has a minor third from the root to the third, but it still has a perfect fifth from the root to the fifth. You can build it anywhere as long as you put a minor triad on the bottom and a perfect fifth from the bottom to the top. Now other people will tell you that this means that the third from the root to the third is a major third, and the third from the third to the fifth is a minor third when you're dealing with a major triad. When you're dealing with a minor triad, the root to the third is a minor third, and the third to the fifth is a major third. So some people might find that more helpful. A diminished triad is a minor third from the root to the third, and a diminished fifth from the root to the fifth. And this has the result that you have a minor third from the root to the third and another minor third from the third to the fifth. In an augmented triad, you guessed it, you got 2 major thirds. You have a root to the third is a major third, and the root to the fifth is an augmented fifth, with the end result that your root to the third is a major third, and your third to the fifth is a major third. In figure 4.6, it's going to show you how you can construct these things. I like to go from major to augmented. So here is a G major triad, GBD. GBD sharp is augmented back to GBD. G B flat D is minor, and G B flat D flat is diminished. So from the root to the third is a major third, from the root to the fifth is a perfect fifth. In augmented, from the root to the third is a major third, and from the root to the fifth is an augmented fifth. In minor, the root to the third is a minor third, and the root to the fifth is a perfect fifth. And in diminished, the root to the third is a minor third, and the root to the fifth is a diminished fifth. And that's also true here for E major in the bass clef. There's your major chord, augmented with the raised fifth, back to major, lower the third, lower the fifth. The strongest and the most stable chord of those four is the major triad. The next most stable is the minor triad, and then both diminished and augmented are weak and unstable. Now you can build a triad on any scale degree, and this is where it is helpful if you've learned the names of the scale degrees. A tonic triad, if you're in C major, the tonic triad will be a major triad. The supertonic will be a minor triad. The mediant will be a minor triad. The subdominant will be major. The dominant will be major. The submediant will be minor. The leading tone triad will be diminished, and the tonic will be major again. You only use the notes of the scale to create the chords. Otherwise, they're altered chords. The primary triads, the major triads, are the tonic and the dominant and the subdominant. 1, 4, 5. So those are the primary triads. And you can harmonize all sorts of tunes with that, like Happy Birthday. Happy 1, happy 5, happy 5, happy 1, happy 1, happy 4, happy 1, 5, 1. So a lot of folk songs are harmonized with either the tonic and the dominant, or the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. So learn that, because you're going to need to know it. Then triad position. There's root position, first inversion, and second inversion. And it's just what it means, sounds like. It's turning things upside down. So these are all root position triads, because the root is on the bottom. Remember, the root is the bottom note, the third is the middle note, and the fifth is the top note. And when the root is on the bottom, the triad is said to be in root position. When the third chord factor, and it doesn't matter what else is going on above it, if the root is on the bottom, no matter what else is happening, it's in root position. But you can turn a triad upside down. Root, third, fifth. Third, fifth, root. That's first inversion. Root, third, fifth. Fifth, root, third, or anything with the fifth on the bottom. That's second inversion. So for first inversion, the third chord factor is on the bottom. Everything else can be all over the place, but as long as the third chord factor is on the bottom, this is figure 4.11, it is considered to be first inversion. In figure 4.12, they show you that when the fifth chord factor is on the bottom, it's in second inversion, no matter what else is happening. Okay, root position, first inversion, second inversion. Now, you can add thirds to these triads and get other tertian chords. Here's a triad, here's adding a seventh, here's adding a ninth, here's adding an 11th, here's adding a 13th. The one we're going to study for now is the seventh triad. So here they built a seventh triad in C major, 1, 7, 2, 7, 3, 7, 4, 7, 5, 7. 5, 7 is the dominant seventh chord. It's a major triad with a minor seventh on top. All the other ones, this is a major triad with a major seventh on top. This is a minor triad with a minor seventh on top. This is a minor triad with a minor seventh on top. This is a major major triad with a major seventh on top. What makes the dominant seventh interesting is it's a major triad with a minor seventh on top, or a major minor seventh, and that's the dominant seventh. That's the 5/7 that really makes you want to hear the tonic. Those 5/7 chords really pull you back to tonic. So the history of all of this is coming out of the 1200s. You have a composition type known as organum. Harmony developed gradually during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance period. And in the Renaissance, which would be about 1450 to 1600, harmony was the result of a combination of melodic lines, and that wasn't harmony as we know it. It was a study of the relationship of consonant and dissonant relationships between melody lines. And then during the Baroque period, 1600 to 1750, they developed this idea of having a melody accompanied by chords. And the keyboard players were expected to be able to read a melody and a bass line and numbers and create, this is called a figure bass, create an accompaniment based on seeing the melody, seeing the bass line, and seeing the numbers that refer to particular chords. And usually it was the harpsichord with some other instrument, like maybe a viol da gamba, the predecessor of the cello, or maybe a type of bassoon to play the bass line. And this was just the way it was. In 1722, and it was the way it was a lot for all sorts of music. In 1722, Jean-Philippe Rameau wrote something called de l'harmonie, the treatise on harmony, and that describes the theory of harmony as it was practiced. And he talks about chord inversions in this book, and it was a very accurate description of what they were doing, and still holds true for the most part for today. So we use different symbols to analyze chords so that we can understand the chord structure and relationships between different parts of a piece that we're playing. And we might use, in theory, we most likely use Roman numerals with figured bass numbers, but if you're reading pop music, then you're going to be reading pop music symbols. So we're going to learn both of those. The Roman numeral system assigns Roman numerals to each scale degree. In a major scale, the 1 chord is major, so it gets a capital Roman numeral. The 2 chord is minor, so it gets a lowercase Roman numeral. The 3 chord is minor, so it gets a lowercase Roman numeral. The 4 chord is major, so it gets an uppercase Roman numeral. 5 is major, so it gets an uppercase Roman numeral. 6 is minor, so it gets lowercase, and 7 is diminished, so it gets lowercase with a little circle for diminished. Now, in the natural minor scale, everything's different. 1 is minor, 2 is diminished, 3 is major, 4 is minor, 5 is minor, 6 is major, 7 is major, and 1 is minor. Because you're using the notes of the C minor scale to create your chords, which is also the notes of the E flat major scale. Then, harmonic minor, remember you raise the 7th scale degree, and that is B natural instead of B flat. So wherever there's a B, it's a B natural, which means 1 is minor, 2 is still diminished, 3 is augmented, 4 is still minor, but here's the important part, 5 is major, and 6 is minor, and 7 is diminished because of the raised 7th scale degree. And then a melodic minor, where you raise the 6th and 7th scale degrees a half step, that changes a lot of things. 1 is minor, 2 is minor, it's no longer diminished. 3 is still augmented, 4 becomes major, 5 is major, 6 becomes diminished, and 7 is diminished. And here's a little chart at the bottom of page 78 where they tell you which triads are major, which triads are minor, which triads are diminished, which triads are augmented. 3 is the only one that's augmented, and in what type of scale that happens. So just remember, if you have a major 7 chord, you're in natural minor. Look for some patterns. Melodic minor is the only minor scale that has a major 4 chord. So we'll do more with that, more drills with that. Again, a triad is called in root position if the root is in the very lowest sounding note, no matter what else is going on. It's in first inversion if the third chord factor is the lowest sounding note, no matter what else is going on, and you use the number 6. It really means 6-3. There's the interval of a sixth. This is a 5-3. We don't use it, but that's what it is. There's a fifth and a third. Root to the fifth, root to the third. This is from the bottom to the top is a sixth, and from the bottom to the middle is a third. And we don't usually write the 3, nor do we usually write the 5-3, but that's what they are. And then this one you have to write both, because there's an interval of a sixth from the bottom to the top and an interval of a fourth from the bottom to the middle. So second inversion, where the fifth chord factor is in the bass, no matter what else is going on, is a 1-6-4 or something 6-4. So then here they show you, this is a 5-5-3, which normally you just write the Roman numeral. The Roman numeral 6-3 is first inversion, but normally you just write the 6. And 6-4, you write both because you have to identify that as a sixth and a fourth, so you know it's second inversion. Then if you're doing seventh chords, you've got 4 things to worry about: root position, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion. So this is a little something from last year. The numbers for root position, normally you just write 7, but it really means a seventh from the root to the top, a fifth from the root to the there, and a third. So it's an interval of a seventh and a fifth and a third. When you're in first inversion, when you put the G or whatever the bass note is on the top, then you've got the interval of a sixth from the bottom to the top, interval of a fifth, and an interval of a third. So it's a 6-5-3, and normally we just write 6-5. Now here is an interval of a sixth from the bottom to the top, and then an interval of a fourth, and an interval of a third. And they don't do that 6 anymore, they just write 4-3. And then you have an interval of a sixth, interval of a fourth, interval of a second, and they just write 4-2. So root position just gets the number 7, superscript 7. First inversion is a 6-5, whereas in a regular triad it's just a 6. In a regular triad, second inversion is 6-4, but in a seventh chord, second inversion is 4-3. And there is no third inversion in a regular triad. But in a seventh chord, you say something 4-2. All right. Then, figured bass just means a bass line with numbers. And that's saved on paper. You just would, back in the Baroque period when everything was written up by hand, you would just write the bass line and the numbers, and usually the melody would also be available to the keyboardist. And they would strive to stay out of the way of the melody and create chords and musical figures that meshed with the melody. But it meant that everybody was a bit of a composer as well as a player, until keyboard instruments became very popular for the rising middle class, and then you had to have a whole other market or supply of music for the people who were amateur keyboard players. And then this figured bass thing went out of style because those people wanted their music written out. So here it is. I'll just play this melody and bass line for you, and you can see it's really not very complete. So what this means is a 6-3. So what I'm playing is a first inversion chord here, a first inversion chord here, a second inversion chord, a root position chord, and sometimes, well, nowadays they'll usually give you, if they're clever, they'll give you both the figures and a realization. A realization means written out version of it. So here's the realization. Which is following good style practice. The top of the accompaniment is never as high as the top of the melody. If you see a figured bass realization where the top of the accompaniment is as high as the top of the melody, it's probably very old, from the 60s or earlier, and they didn't understand all of the performance practice. I don't sing that high on a regular basis. So these are not all of the symbols at the bottom of page 81. That's not all of the symbols for figured bass. I will probably give you a sheet that is all the symbols for figured bass from a Baroque performance practice class. And that's what people read off of. So if you see nothing, that means 5/3. And they have all these different ways of writing that. If you see a 6, it's in first inversion, and a 6/4 is in second inversion. Just like for theory. So here would be a bass line with just some numbers. And if you just wanted to play the chords in the simplest way possible, 5/3. So 1, 1-5-3, 1-6-3, 2-6-3, 1-6-4, 5-1. And then here's if you wanted to make it prettier. And then this one is with everything written out. Octave and a fifth and a third, a sixth, a sixth, a third. No one would ever have written all that information for you. You were expected to know all that. Octave, sixth, and a third, a prime, a sixth, and a fourth, and a 5/3, and a 5/3. A figured bass that contains a 6 but not a 4 means first inversion. If it has a 6 and a 4, it means second inversion. And then there were ways to show sharps or flats. Usually, if they're all by themselves alone, it means the sixth, the third above the root is the one that gets the sharp, the flat, or the natural. And also a slash means that. So read that little gray box. Here is another figure 4.23, another realization. So that's just an A minor triad. This is going to be B, D sharp, and really, oh, the 6th is sharped. So it's a G sharp B D chord. The B is the third chord factor. The G sharp is the root. This is an A C E chord with a C in the bass. This is a B D F chord with the D in the bass. This is an A C E chord with a E in the bass. There's an E chord, E F sharp, E G sharp B. And then something that we're really not going to do a lot with, but that you should know about, is called macro analysis, meaning the larger scale. So you can read this on your own. I'm not going to read it to you. Major triads are represented by capital letters, minor by lowercase letters. Lowercase letters with a little circle show you a diminished, and with a plus show you augmented. So this thing on the bottom here in figure 4.24 shows you the Roman numeral analysis. 1, 1, 6, 5, 1, 6, 1, 4, 7, 6, 1, 6, 1, 5. But in macro analysis, you should say, well, it's an A chord going to an E chord, going back to an A chord, going to a D chord, a G diminished chord, A chord, E chord. chords. So they're not bothering with the inversions or anything, just the basic harmony. That's the big picture, the macro. So the way you would indicate these chords in macro analysis, this would be C, D, E flat, F sharp, lowercase c, D, lowercase for minor, lowercase with a diminished symbol for all these diminished chords, and augmented with would be like a C plus, a D plus, an E flat plus, an F sharp plus. And if you were doing a dominant seventh, you just have the name of the root and the 7. To show that something is going to another thing, they have these slurs. So the B flat is going to the E flat. 5, 1. Two, 5, 2 to 5. No. Yes. C. 6, 2. What is the D diminished? 7, 1. Macroanalysis symbols are traditionally positioned below the score. Oh, you have a dotted line for leading tone going to. So you can read this and look at that. And then pop chord symbols, which I think you may need to know someday if you're going to be in a praise band. Let me play this tune. So you'd have a C minor chord in the simplest form. To a G minor chord. F minor. C minor, G minor, C minor. G7 with that raised fifth. Really? So there's lots of juicy information in here and some book recommendations. The new Real Book series, standardized chord and symbol notation, and then there's a whole appendix too. If you need that information at some point, it's there. And if you're just showing major triads would be capital letters. Minor triads are capital letters with an MI. Diminished triads are capital letters with a dim. They like capital letters. And augmented triads are a capital letter with a plus sign. Sometimes they'll add a sixth above the roots, and then they'll just have the number 6 and some people might argue that's an A, C, E, G chord, but jazz and pop music, they like to add color to things. Seventh chords are very popular in popular music. So G7, you might have a dominant seventh, a major 7, a 7 with a sharped 5, a minor 7, a minor 7 with a flat 5, and a diminished 7. I will leave you to read the summary on your own and the practice on your own, and next we will do some of the homework.